Yes, it is back on now for sure. Good morning, Riley and Rayleigh and Dalton. You don't have to turn on your cameras, but I just wanted to say hello. We have about 5 more people registered, but it is just afternoon, so I'll go ahead and start, and they can join us as we go. We are so excited. Emily and I were just saying hello to Clarissa, but we're so thrilled to have her be able to do this for today, even as she is actually on a break from her. Do they call it spring break?
No, it's just because the program I'm in, because we have a top portion and a research portion. So I just finished all my classes last week, and now I'm moving into research. So they gave us like 2 weeks off to transition.
So just to get your head together before you go into that research phase. Okay. Well, just to let everyone know, Clarissa was an undergraduate student here at UK, and we worked with her on her Fulbright, and very delighted for her when she got the opportunity to go to Ireland to study. But why don't you talk just for a couple minutes, Clarissa, about being a UK student and what we haven't told everybody, about that background, your major and the things you did and why you wanted to go to Ireland on a Fulbright.
Okay. So I did food science at Kentucky, and I've always been interested in human milk, like breast milk research that I did in high school. I never really thought I could do that as a career until I got towards the end of not the end of my senior year, but into the final few years at Kentucky. And then I started looking into more of graduate school, but I didn't really want to sign up to a full PhD. So I started looking at like 1-year masters, that sort of thing. And I knew I didn't want to be in the country. If I could take the opportunity to travel while I'm still a student, the focus is on learning and experience. I wanted to take that opportunity. And I spent sophomore year in England, near London. So I knew I liked coming over in this area of the world and that I would be comfortable over here, but just pick somewhere slightly different. And then I had visited Ireland before for just a couple weeks, and I remembered it being beautiful and everyone was really, really friendly, even in the major cities. And so I knew Ireland was the place to look at, and that's where I started looking. So.
And you did, when you were here as an undergraduate student, you did like an internship in food science one summer, didn't you? I think that
Yes, I actually interned. I did production management internship at a cheese factory.
That's what I thought.
In Missouri. Yeah, and I lived on a goat farm, and I worked in like a 700 employee cheese factory.
Okay.
So it was
you had a range of experiences before you decided to go and do your Fulbright.
Yes, I did. Between that and study abroad and just like all the field trips and stuff we do as part of the food science degree, I had quite a bit of experience with dairy specifically. And then Ireland, it helped coming to Ireland with the dairy background, because even if the degree is not dairy science, a lot of food programs are focused on dairy just because that's what Ireland does. So.
Well, tell us more then about what exactly is it you're doing now? What is the program and what is that like?
So I am doing a taught master's in food microbiology. It is 1 year. So I started in September officially, and then it'll end in September where I turn in my dissertation. And so for the fall, in the first half of the spring, I took classes in a variety of topics, some of which were actually the same as what I had in undergrad, like food sanitation, just kind of more generic food classes. And then in the spring, they focused more on like teaching laboratories and I really like it because they gave us information before just throwing us into a research project. And so after we finish all of our classes in March beginning, and we get assigned supervisors, but I was able to request one. a specific area. Like I told them I was interested in human milk. So I found a supervisor in that area. And then for the rest of the summer, I'll be doing research in a research laboratory from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, all the way until September. So that's what I'm doing.
And so, but you're getting to work on the topic that you're interested in. You're not working on cow dairy or sheep dairy or those other, okay.
Yeah, I had looked up sort of what researchers were in this area at UCC. I'm at the University College Cork, UC. I had looked before and I knew there was a lot of options. It wasn't necessarily guaranteed for my program which supervisor I would get, but I talked to the coordinator of the course and she said basically that I could ask for what I wanted, and if there was an opportunity I could get that. And even I knew even if I didn't get human milk, whatever I did get would have transferable skills, and that the supervisor would be happy to introduce me to anyone at UCC, and I could basically network with someone in my field if I didn't get a supervisor in my field. So.
And does the Fulbright help you at all with any part of the study portion, or is that you, I mean, you're on a Fulbright grant, but basically all of the components of the study program and working with supervisors and making your own arrangements, those are all up to you. Is that correct?
Yes, those are all up to me. I will say for some people, less me in the science fields, but I know like the art, I know a few people who are doing art in museums and such. Once you get here, Fulbright can open doors as far as connecting with other people and getting guest lecturing spots or whatever you want to do. But actually getting into the degree and doing my classes and finding a supervisor, that was all me.
Okay.
So.
And I should say real quickly to the people who are listening, one, that we're recording this, if I didn't say that clearly, and two, because we're a fairly small group, I think if anyone wanted to ask a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it, or you can put it in the chat box, and Emily was going to help me monitor that, and we'll be happy to make sure that we ask that as we're going, so in case you think you'll forget or something. One of the things is, I guess, tell us a little bit about Cork. And I don't know anything about Cork, Ireland. So what is the town like where you are?
So Cork is one of the major cities, actually. So there's Dublin, which is the capital, and then Galway and Cork. And it's a city, but it's about a third the size of Lexington. Okay. So it's really not that big, but it has all the major shops and everything. And it's right on the coast, which most places in Ireland are right on the coast. And it's quite small, but I live in the city center. It still feels very international and like a lot of people. It's quite busy because a lot of people are walking. So it seems bigger than it actually is. And then as far as it's very, I guess, community based, I've had a few of the Fulbrighters from Dublin come and visit me in Cork, and they've all said they wish they had chosen Cork instead of Dublin. So I think it's just people miss out on the community and smaller town feel in Dublin, and Cork is kind of still has that without losing any of the city like pubs and things to do. And I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, I like Cork. It's very pretty.
And I know that your life is getting ready to change. As you said, you're going to be moving from one phase of your degree to this more intense research phase. But I guess to the extent that you can, what does a day in the life look like? Are you on campus all day, every day, or do you have classes 2 days a week? I mean, how does it structure in the graduate program there?
So for the fall, when I was just doing classes, I had classes for about like 2 to 3 hours every day except Monday, which was quite nice. And even then, all the lectures were recorded, especially with COVID, so you didn't have to go in person. And so the day in the life of me, honestly, I wake up at like 10 and then go to maybe a couple of classes and then usually have coffee with my classmates in between. And then that's about it. And then in the spring, this past spring, I had lab from 9 to 2, which was very different, and an online class for 2 hours in the afternoon. And then in coming in the future, I'll be 9 to 5 in a research lab. And then besides that, I joined a few societies. Not that I went to them a lot, but and they usually have a meeting about once a week, just doing whatever the activity is. There's like a sci-fi club that puts on movies, which is really nice. And then my other main thing I do is every Wednesday night, I am on a pub quiz team. So
Oh,
I go to a pub quiz at 8 p.m. every Wednesday. It's really fun.
and so have you met, is that a university thing or is it a community event?
It's just a pub near I met another American by accident. I didn't know they were American on a campus tour the first week. And ever since then, we've had a group of Americans, Canadians, and Irish people all join up and form teams every pub quiz night. So it's just at a pub.
Wonderful.
It's
And
really
just
nice.
because I happen to know a little bit about your background, have you been able to play rugby?
No, I could play rugby, but I hurt myself, so I'm not allowed to play contact sports anymore.
Oh, no.
I
Okay.
know. And that happened. I got like the official diagnosis just a few months before, or not a few months, but like 6 months before I actually came here. And so I knew coming in that I couldn't do rugby. So I tried to join other societies, but if anyone else comes, they should definitely do rugby.
For those people who are listening, that was something that Clarissa initially had talked about in her Fulbright application, was something she had hoped to do. And I guess I should say also for people who will be listening to this, the Fulbright process is far in advance. You start your application well in advance, a full year in advance. Well, that's just the campus application. You actually start well over a year of the time that you would land in Ireland or whatever other country. And so you make the plans as best you can. You know, you try to forecast what you'll be doing, but this is what happens. Life changes your plans a little bit. So I suspect being flexible has been very important for you.
Oh yes, because I remember the director I met in October when I first got here. We had a dinner to meet everyone, and he was so excited about me playing rugby, and I had to confess that I couldn't play rugby anymore. But it's okay. I've already made plans to go to rugby games and support the college team, so it's good.
Okay, wonderful. Well, did you find that oh, go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to say, can you talk a little bit about kind of the workload in your classes? Like, did you feel like it kind of felt like how graduate school would feel like? Was it easier? Was it more work? Do you feel like you were prepared?
Yes. So fortunately, since I did my year in England, I was kind of prepared for the shift. But at most, I may have one assignment per class, and it might be worth 10%. But then everything else is just the exam. And my exams are all like choose 2 of 3 questions and you write an essay. Even for like a STEM degree, I was still just writing essay exams. And my essays were either worth 80 to 100% of my final grade. So it's very, very different. The workload, especially this fall when I just had a few classes, was very light. And then this spring, I had quite a few things due within 2 weeks, a bunch of exams, lab reports, and I had to write a literature review before I got accepted into my research project. So those weeks were intense, but I had to keep reminding myself that even then, that was a lot less work than I did in undergrad. So the workload is a lot lighter, I would say. You just have to be willing to take very high percentage exams. So,
and as far as you know, does it work like that throughout European countries? it would be similar, that final assessment being very, very important, right?
Yes, I've heard it's similar, because I have a few people in my degree that are Spanish. I think Ireland and the UK are more like higher percentage, and I think they're discussing making it more what they call continuous assessment, so like more worksheets and papers and things. And I think it might differ depending on your degree, because I know some people doing like international development and they do more papers. But even then, it's less papers than would be expected of you in like undergrad. So, and you just have less course contact hours anyway, so you have a lot more free time than you would when you're at Kentucky. So
that's nice. It
it
allows
is
you to
nice.
more time for pub quiz.
It is nice. It also means you have to try and fill a lot of free time, especially when you first get here and you don't know anyone. So it can be quite intense.
Well, talk about that. I mean, talk about that period of how does one adjust when you've moved your life overseas? Did you have a lot of Fulbrighters that you were introduced to at your orientation? Did that help?
So I would say it would help if I lived in Dublin. Apparently, they have some years on and off where there's a lot of Fulbrighters in Cork, but this time I was the only one in Cork.
Okay.
And so I could tell that the people in Dublin got pretty close and they had friends from the get-go to hang out with. And so I didn't really have anyone. And I think it would have been easier had I been able to play rugby, because then there you go, you have like 30 friends from the get-go. But I came like 3 weeks before classes started, so none of the clubs or societies were even meeting yet. And I was basically just alone for like 2.5 weeks. So it was a struggle at first, I say for the first month, just trying to meet people. And there's only 12 people in my course, so we got quite close, but a lot of them didn't live in Cork and commuted. So honestly, it was pretty lonely for the first couple of months, especially with COVID. You couldn't just walk up to people at pubs.
Right. That's
And
right.
so, yeah, it's been a lot better this spring, with all the restrictions lifted. People can actually socialize in pubs and things. So.
And is the graduate school fairly large there or fairly small at University College Cork?
I think the graduate school seems really large. It's just my specific degree program was only 12 people.
Okay.
Which my undergraduate degree program, I think, was 9 people, so I wasn't really concerned by that. And I would say a lot of the graduate students seem to be international students. And so there's a good mix. There's a lot of Americans and a lot of people from Spain and India. I would say those are the 3 main, and then obviously Ireland, but there's a lot of international students, even in my program.
What was the most surprising thing for you about living in Ireland?
I'd say the most surprising, honestly, is the weather. I thought it was going to be horrible, and I was totally expecting to wear a raincoat every day. And I would say there was only like 3 days where I was actually being rained on going to class. And it doesn't get that cold. The coldest it got was 35 degrees for a few weeks in the winter. And so it's been really nice. Especially.
And I know you're going to take your laptop or your iPad outside and show us a little bit about where you are now. And so that will be exciting for us to get to see a little bit.
Yes.
What do you wish you'd known before you left the US? What are things that potential Fulbright applicants should think about?
What I wish I realized just how flexible you would need to be. Like, I was really worried because in my application, I wrote kind of what I could do. But since at that time I didn't know my supervisor or my project, and I wouldn't know until like a few weeks ago, I just found out. I was really worried that the Fulbright Commission would find out and just be mad because I didn't know. But honestly, it was fine. And I've talked to other Fulbrighters, and even they said they've ended up doing or switching what their research project was, and the commission just supported them in their decision. And I think the other thing is that I feel like imposter syndrome is such a big issue, especially with me coming from like a small ag program at Kentucky. I was so worried that everyone here was just going to be extremely smart and all from Yale and Harvard and just knew what they were doing with their life. And I would say that is not the case at all. Even the scholars, like the professors that are visiting, coming over with Fulbright, even they seem to suffer from imposter syndrome. And so it's good to know that you're not the only one. Everyone feels that way. So.
And did you find that out yes, you are extremely smart, Emily, put that in the chat. Did you, you met the scholars, and Fulbright scholars, for everybody on the call, are the faculty who get Fulbrights and go over. They're not in the US student program, which is what you're doing. But you all meet up for some orientation in the beginning, right? And that's how you meet them?
Yes, we had like a Zoom orientation for just the students in the spring. And then in the fall, we didn't really have an orientation, but we had a dinner to just sort of meet everyone. And I think they might do orientation like next year. If it was just because of COVID restrictions, we couldn't meet.
Yeah.
So we met all the scholars, and they put on events every few months where all the Fulbrighters can get together, and they usually have people from the commission board and even some people from like the Irish government come, and it's just really good networking opportunities.
Yes.
So it's kind of crazy. We even had a dinner and like an event at the US ambassador's house in Dublin.
And is it easy for you to travel to these events, or were they all on Zoom, or?
I travel to all of them.
Okay.
They say that some years they host events in Cork, but this year everything's been in Dublin. And it's just a 2.5, 3-hour train from Cork into Dublin. And then any Fulbrighters that are away from the event, even those, there's some people in Galway, they'll pay for all your transportation and an overnight stay in a hotel.
Oh, that's great.
It's really nice hotels too. So I always go to the events.
Well, talk a little bit about that. Is the way that Fulbright handles the financing, has that worked out well? Have you had sufficient stipend to cover housing and meals and the things you wanted to do?
I would say so. With the award I got, the tuition for my program was waived, and then I had a 16,500 euro stipend. And I will say most of that went towards housing already, but I could have saved money had I chosen to like share in student accommodation, but I chose a more expensive place to live in the city center. I think it's going to end up being okay, the stipend, but I've just honestly spent quite a bit of the stipend traveling and everything. And the Fulbright Commission has asked us our opinions on whether or not it's enough. So I think they may be adjusting it in the future because housing prices in Ireland have skyrocketed. So
yes,
I think
they're quite expensive. I understand that. Yeah.
Quite high, especially in Dublin. I've heard that was one of the other reasons the students in Dublin told me they wished they went to one of the other cities because it's so expensive and they had a lot of trouble finding a place to live. So.
And I know you're not currently in your regular housing, but is your regular housing an apartment then in the city center, you said? Is it a room in someone's house? How did that work out?
Yeah, so it's like off-campus housing for just students.
Okay.
And so I'm in a flat with 5 other students, and we share a kitchen and a living room. And then I have my own really small, but it's still nice bedroom and bathroom, which is nice. And it's been a good. I was worried having 6 people in one apartment, but it's actually quite nice. And then in May, I'm moving out of there and into a shared house with 5 other students closer to campus.
Okay.
And that one, one of my classmates had a place open up in her house. And then the flat, I just Googled it and found it online. So.
Okay. But that is one thing about being a Fulbrighter. In many cases for study and research, and you are finding your own housing, right? Fulbright doesn't have a designated accommodation where you stay, or so that is one thing for people to know about that. What are other things that you think a potential applicant should know? Things that we would not, I didn't prepare you in the application process, or I didn't know to tell you. Were there lots of things that you were surprised by? Or
I think there wasn't much I was surprised by. I would say that obviously starting early, even though I started early and sort of still procrastinated, I would definitely start on your application very early. And that the interview actually was very surprising because it was so stressful. Going to that final interview, I was so worried, but the actual panel was super nice, and the entire time just giving encouraging smiles, and it was more of a conversation. So I think good advice would be to just not freak out about it.
And this was the one on campus, or did you have an interview with your university in the Fulbright process?
I had an interview at Kentucky.
Yep.
With you guys.
Okay.
And I was worried about that, but that was still,
okay.
Well, that was still more advice on my application, which is nice to know. And then the actual interview with the commission was the most surprising because I thought it was going to be more of a grilling. And it was really just kind of basic questions, why do you want to go? What are you going to do there? But it ended up being quite fun. We talked about rugby a lot. So
yeah, well, we really hit that in your application, and then so it's a shame that you can't play, but I hope you will get to observe this spring. Well, did you want, while some of our people on the call are thinking about maybe questions they might have, you said you would take us outside, so to speak, and show us. And where did you say you are now?
Okay, so I have this time off. So I'm in Oranmore outside of Galway, on the coast. And then the second half of this week, I'll be in Cary with my classmates in a different Airbnb. We're all coming together to hang out and go to the beach.
And is it warm enough to swim?
It's quite cold, but I've seen quite a few people swimming, but only.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, but it's 64 and perfectly sunny, and the sunset goes right over the water because I'm facing the east. But yeah, I've hopped this wall and walked around the entire coastline that I could see. There's a castle. Don't know if you're frozen.
That is gorgeous. And it's certainly sunny here too in Lexington today, but that is not the view out my windows.
Might need to get back to the Wi-Fi.
So while Clarissa's going back inside, do we have any other questions that anyone wants to ask? I know Riley and Dalton, I sent you a document with the Fulbright website on it and some advice, and we can talk more details about the specifics of the application. But I just wanted today for you to get to hear from Clarissa a little bit about what it's like when you actually move, and what it would be like to be a graduate student internationally. Of course, it might be different in Germany. It might be different in Spain. I mean, but I suspect some of the things would feel very similar. I'm sure that first month is very discombobulating for everyone because you've made such a big move. You know, and I'm sure it's stressful, even if the Fulbright Commission is supportive. And it sounds like they were for you, right? That if you had a difficulty, you felt like you could reach out, or?
Yes. But I also like tried not to just because I didn't want to bother them too much. And then I think it depends on your commission, but they didn't respond to my emails necessarily that promptly.
Ah, okay.
So I tried to just solve it on my own. And I think it's very different if you were staying in Dublin because you could just go visit the office, everything. But being in Cork, you're kind of out in the wild a little bit.
And we do have a question here from Riley. What advice would you give to a student trying to choose one specific program over any others? Did you look at faculty, curriculum, location, etc.? What was your primary motivator, Clarissa?
I looked at faculty and like the curriculum because I wasn't really too fussed about where in Ireland I wanted to be. And so I was torn because I didn't know if I wanted to do food science or food microbiology. Like I wasn't even sure at UCC which program to do. And I decided to pick the one I'm in because of the 5-month or 6-month research project. It's sort of like a pseudo research master's. It's not just taught classes. And I thought it was a good balance, just kind of looking at the experience that I think I would have. I didn't want to be stuck in a classroom. So.
And one thing to mention, Riley, in the terminology might be a little different, particularly I think in Europe where they have taught master's degrees, which is what Clarissa has mentioned. And that would be very like a US master's degree where it's classroom based, or at least a certain percentage of the degree is. Mm-hmm. And then they also have a research master's degree where you pretty much start in research from the beginning, if it's a full research master's. And so you have to have an idea, probably more of a topic to begin with, and you have already a project mentor coming in. And so you start doing research right away. And there would be, you might not have any classes, or you might have one, or you might occasionally go to lectures on campus. I know at some of the British universities, there's a lot of just public lectures that students from different programs might go to, as opposed to just a class for your particular degree program. They have a slightly different. So that would be something to think about, Riley, is the kind of, you know, are you looking to do primarily a research degree? Do you want the Toastmasters? I think language can also be, in some countries where the host language is not English, making sure the program is in English if you don't think you feel to speak the host country language well enough to take it in that language. Now, that's not the case. I don't know if any of the programs are taught in Gaelic unless they are teaching you the language, mm-hmm. right? But all the programs there are in English. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it one of those things? I mean, we say English, but to speak a British form of English has differences from an American form of English. Did you find there were things that you didn't know, or you thought that meant one thing and it meant another, or they use a very different slang, or?
Oh, that's happened quite a few times. I mean, that happened like an hour ago. Someone said they were bringing peas to my course holiday. And I was like, why are you bringing peas? And apparently it's slang for money.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know. And I was so confused why they were bringing cans of peas to our trip. And as far as I was worried about being able to understand the accent of my teachers. And I did struggle a bit with the mask and everything on, but then quite a few of my teachers aren't Irish. So then even I have one teacher that's German who's got a very strong accent. So even the other Irish students, we were all in the same boat of not understanding him.
Okay.
But everyone's been really good about just repeating themselves because I think all the teachers are very aware that much of the class are international and about half of us, like, English isn't our first language. So they're pretty good about handling different language barriers.
And just to, before we move on to Emily's question, let me ask one other thing in terms of this assessment at the end of each of your terms. And you had 3 terms, right?
Yeah, sort of. I didn't know until I got here that my fall semester was split in half. So I had different classes for the first half and the second half, and then all the exams were in the winter. And then in the spring, I only had about the same, like 8 weeks for classes and then an exam. And then I remember when I studied in England, all of the exams for all the classes in the whole year were all in June. So that's something to keep in mind if you struggle with tests. You may have like months between your actual class and your exam. So
is there a lot of, I mean, are you spending a lot of time in the weeks before the exam, like for MCATs or something like that, for a big exam where you would be trying to go over a lot of material in those final few weeks?
I think so. I kind of cram. They usually give a week off to study.
Okay.
And then you have a lot of free time, but it's also kind of nice because the classes, since I had short classes, it wasn't that much material. And it's easy to keep interested because you're doing a bunch of different subjects. So.
Okay. Let me, so 2 questions then. What are you planning to do after September? So what will you be doing when you finish? Do you know? And then also, Rayleigh asked, how much traveling or sightseeing have you been able to do? Or have you spent more of your time in class or studying?
So for the first one, I'm not sure. I thought I was going to do a PhD and I might do one in a couple of years, but I really want a break from school.
Yeah.
Even though I really like it here, it's still school. So it'd be nice to take a break. And then I found out, I didn't know this, that once you finish the Fulbright, you actually have 12 months of non-competitive eligibility for the government.
Yep. For the US federal government.
Yep. So I think I'm going to apply to work at the CDC.
Oh,
that's
wonderful.
why I'm thinking that's my plan, or somewhere in the federal government with microbiology, which is most likely the CDC or the FDA.
So it would be the techniques that you're learning in your degree program, not necessarily the study of breast milk then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the good thing I knew about going into my degree, is that a lot of the skills I'll learn and the technology are very transferable, because even though my actual research project is on a specific bacteria, I know that a lot of the stuff I learned I could just apply to any situation. And so should be pretty easy, not easy, should apply to a lot of jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's the plan.
And then the traveling. Now I know Fulbright paid for your travel over and return home. They don't leave you stranded. But then in your travels around the country, I guess when they're non-Fulbright events, do you just take that out of your stipend?
Yes.
Okay.
So honestly, I haven't kept track of it because I sold my car before coming.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of savings at this point, and I was, thinking I need to budget. I'm still budgeting, but budget strictly so that I could buy a car when I get back. But now I'm sort of in the phase of, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, true.
And so
you're trying to travel more.
I'm just trying to travel more, and I don't want to say no to a few pints to save money. So, and I've been traveling quite a lot, especially because the lectures in the fall were online or recorded, so you're not limited as far as like needing to go to class. Um, so it's been pretty easy to travel around in Ireland. I know though with the Fulbright, you have a limit for how many days you can leave your country. But this is also a limit that I got a little nudge that you just don't have to say if you're gone if you
Mm.
go over the limit, and the weekends don't count.
Oh,
So as long as
okay.
your weekend trips out of the country, it's fine too.
And you're pretty
So-
close to be able to travel easily to some other countries, correct?
Oh yes, I haven't left yet just because I thought there's plenty to do in Ireland that I wanted to see. But I think during the summer I might do quite a few weekend trips.
Mhm.
And I also technically my Fulbright is only for 9 or 10 months, even though my tuition was waived for the year. And so once I'm out of the Fulbright umbrella, like you can do whatever travel you want. I'm still here till September.
Okay.
And that was another thing to consider with the stipend, was only meant for 9 or 10 months. And I'm still here for an extra 2 or 3. So I'm having to stretch the stipend a little bit further than it was meant to be.
Okay, that is new information for me. I knew the Fulbright year that we talk about is generally about 10 months. What I didn't know is if your degree is a literal full 12 months that they don't like arrange to stretch your stipend. Okay, so that's good for me to know, Clarissa,
Yeah.
when I'm advising students. That is a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, well, I think most of us are, I was surprised too, but most of the people I've talked to, all of us are here for the full 12 months until September. And so they may consider it in the stipend, but on my official documents, I'm out of Fulbright in June. I'm
Okay.
still going to try and get them to include me in all the events if there are any in the summer. But I think I'm technically outside of Fulbright by then.
Okay. But you've been able, I mean, I assume Ireland is not a huge country, so you've been able to get around it pretty well. If you sold your car, you're relying on public transportation, trains, buses? that sort of
Yes. Yes, there's tons of public transportation, which is fantastic. And it's honestly not very expensive. And especially like Cork, there's a train into Dublin. The return trip is like 16 euros, and it's only 3 hours into Dublin. So it's been quite nice. I will say that was another thing that's surprising me. There's still a lot of rural areas in Ireland that aren't served very well by public transportation.
Mm.
And so if you're confident enough to rent a car, it would still be worth it. Or just be comfortable with walking really long distances if you want to go hiking or to anything in the rural areas. Like where I am right now, to get into the Galway city, to get here, I have to walk close to an hour to a bus stop and then take a 45-minute bus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But
So is that how you got to your Airbnb then? You had to walk an hour to find it?
yes. Well, I
Oh, well,
actually
that's
took a-
different, I think. Yeah.
Yes. So especially because I'm staying out on the coastline. It was a little bit of a trek, but the weather is really nice, so it doesn't really bother me. And then even in Cork City, I just walk everywhere. So
So it's good and
Nice.
healthy.
it is helping.
Other questions from anyone in our audience? Because I could keep Clarissa all afternoon, but I shouldn't do that. Are there any other questions about, in general, I mean, I know you got your Fulbright, so we must have prepared you well enough, right? But that's not always true. We have other people we prepared well, but in general, just in terms of the application process, I know, I mean, the reason I know about your cheese making, as I remember you and I had a call or Zoom or something when you were in Missouri, because I know we talked about and worked on your Fulbright application. So you may have procrastinated some, but you did also start pretty early in terms of your interests and picking your country and So I knew pretty early that you wanted Ireland and that you were looking at graduate programs and yeah. So it seems to me, I even knew before you left for your summer internship, I think. You and I
Yes,
must have met.
I
in the
think
summer.
I started in March or April.
Yeah.
Finding well, I just started, I mean, it's so exciting to look at programs. So I started looking at things really early. It was just actually finalizing my essays that I procrastinated on a little bit. But I spent the whole summer brainstorming and kind of trying to piece together a story that I could tell Fulbright,
Yep.
even though like I was still kind of unsure, and even I didn't really know what to tell them. As long as you just commit, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And
So,
you used some of your UK faculty to help you find the program. Was that true? Or
yes. Well, I was looking at different scholarships and I thought Fulbright was just way too fancy and out of my league, basically. But then I talked to one of my food science professors whose her husband had a Fulbright to go to Germany. And she said that he did agricultural science and that, you know, he didn't go to Yale or anything like that, and that he managed to get a Fulbright and that it was well within my wheelhouse and that I should apply. And so I think, yeah, I didn't think had a chance, but now meeting all the other Fulbrighters, all of us didn't think we had a chance.
which I think that I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that's a common thing. And I think sometimes students don't apply for that reason. They don't have enough faith to think they could get it. And in reality, we have had a number of UK students like you get the grant and then go over and do very well and have a great experience. So I would hope that anyone who is listening to this now or listens to it in the future after we get it up will know that they should take the chance, because Fulbright is an award that's open to a wide range of people. And they're not looking for only one very narrow definition of what a Fulbrighter is or should be.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that came out was that you just have to be able to show that you will successfully transition, be able to make friends and like engage with your community, and that you need to come to this location specifically.
And
So
that's
there
why
must
talking
be,
about that program
yeah.
is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I even though I didn't know which supervisor I was going to get, I still listed a few people and explained why I had to go to UCC and to Ireland. So that was good. And then I've actually there's a UK or Kentucky professor here on Fulbright as well, and I've met him.
Oh, who is that?
I do not remember his name.
Oh, I'll have to look up and find out.
Yeah, he does geology, but I just met him a couple of weeks ago. So,
well, that's fun to meet a fellow UK person in Ireland. We didn't expect that.
Yeah, I was very surprised when he introduced himself. So,
oh, that's fun. Any other questions? Clarissa, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's so wonderful to see you, and I'm so glad that you're having such a great experience. This is really nice background to have on what it's actually like to be a Fulbrighter. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for helping me with my application.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. I really appreciate you coming today. I know noon as well. It's not noon for you in Ireland, but noon is hard for students around here sometimes. Thank you, Clarissa. It's great to see you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.